What's up, everybody? It's your girl Phaedra, and you are listening to Phae's Place, the podcast. Over the years, I have fallen in love with the faithfulness of God. His sovereignty is so dependable. The biblical definition of sovereign is God's absolute right to do all things according to his own good pleasure. He's an in spite of kind of God. He chooses to love us in spite of our defiance. He chooses to forgive us in spite of our disobedience. He chooses to keep his promises in spite of our negligence in keeping our promises to him. What an awesome role model he is to us. He is so intentional in the way that he fathers us. Our Christian walk is all about making intentional choices. We choose to either do it the world's way or to do it God's way. We can choose to be popular or to be purposeful. In our culture, the good life usually is associated with wealth and leisure, recreation, and material possessions. Throughout the Bible, the will of God, however, is tied to love, mercy, justice, caring for the poor, which all require giving and sacrifice. Worship and morality cannot be divorced from each other. Faithful participation in worship is not enough. It must be accompanied by a proper and faithful lifestyle. Our method for self-fulfillment simply will not work unless it is tied to the pursuit of God's will. And no one expressed that will more precisely than the prophet Micah. Micah chapter 6 verses 6 through 8 reads, "With what shall I come before the Lord and bow down before the exalted God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000 rivers of olive oil? Shall I offer my firstborn for my transgressions, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." Micah's definition of success is to live your life the way God wants you to. The popular belief in our culture that success and happiness are tied to self-seeking pursuits must be challenged. Verse 6 says, "With what shall I come before the Lord?" The fact that they use the word "what" clearly indicates that they thought the solution was ritual activity. They're asking, what thing must I come to the Lord? As if God could be bought off by substitutes for genuine piety. God always examines the heart of the giver before he looks at the gift. The people also attempted to substitute quantity for quality, as you see it in verse 7 when they suggested thousands of rams and 10,000 rivers of oil as an offering. Micah then answers their questions by reminding them of God's 3 requirements. The first one is to act justly. To act justly does not mean merely to talk about justice or to get other people to act justly. It means to do the just thing yourself. You don't need validation from a friend to do what is right. Like in the story of the Good Samaritan, when everybody else crosses over, you must be intentional in lending a helping hand to restore a person back to a healthy state. The second one is to love mercy. This adds the spirit of generosity and loyalty and graciousness to the acts of justice and assistance. The Hebrew word for mercy is hesed, which is faithful, loyal love that binds a man to his Lord and to his neighbor. It's like a covenant love. When you are intentionally helping a friend, your motivation must stem from your love and commitment to God, not from your need to be glorified by man. The third essential element of doing good is to walk humbly with your God. Walking is the Hebrew idiom for lifestyle. To walk humbly is to live by faith. Faith is the antithesis of pride. Pride demands on taking first place, but faith seeks to give God first place. What we have learned from this passage is that God requires more than an outward performance. He requires certain qualities of the heart, like faith and humility, love and righteousness. In this new age of social media activists and performative activism, make sure you find yourself connected to a cause that God called you to. Show up and be present. Be knowledgeable and open-minded. Be intentional about doing your part. No role is small in this freedom journey. We all are contributing to the history our children will learn about in the future. And now is a great time to ask yourself, where do you want to stand? Don't you want to be on the right side of history? Don't you want to be that good Samaritan who stopped and helped someone simply because that's what God required you to do? Don't you want to leave the 99 and go after the one because that one matters to God? Don't you want to be intentional about the things God is intentional about? So friends, how are you being more intentional with your time, talent, and treasure? I would love to know. Let me know in the comments section. Thank you so much for stopping by Phae's Place. I love you all for listening.